Hello, I'm Philip Burton of SQLintro.com, and this week's question is from Tom. How do you create a Gantt chart in Excel? Oh, thank you very much, Tom. I think the first question is, what is a Gantt chart? Well, it's a sort of program. If you have a look at this example, we can see that there are some activities going down. So we have excavate, build a basement, build a ground floor and build an upper floor with some start dates, finish dates, there might be durations and other things. And you can use specialist programs like Microsoft Project, but you're not actually required to do so. And what else we have? We have the dates going across. So these are just normal dates from the very beginning of the first activity to the end of the last activity with no gaps. And you can see that I've got some ones covering the bar, and then eventually you could have those coloured, for example. So you can see for this particular activity we go from the 4th to the 8th, which is what the start date and finish date. And typically if you need a gap like there, you would probably split this into two different tasks with two different start and finish dates. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to put some ones which we can then colour using conditional formatting, for instance, in the appropriate dates. And in this example, I'm going to use ones which are just daily, and none of these have got any times, they're just days. So what do we need? Well, we should put a 1 in if it's not too early and if it's not too late. So for instance, it's the 1st of March as a start activity, as a start date. So if we were in February, then it would be too early because it doesn't start until the 1st of March. So here we have a start date of the 11th of March, and here we have a time now of the 1st of March. So the activity would not have started by the 1st of March. So if this is greater than the current date, then it's got to be no, it's not the right time. So I'll just put a 1 for the time being, but you can see that it's too early. 1st of March, too early. Now conversely, if the current date is after the finish date, then it's too late. So here, if the finish date is before the current date, then it's too late. So here it's too late. So now let's tie those together. If the start date is later than the current date, then it's too early. If the end date is before the time now, before the current date, then it's too late. Otherwise, it's just right. Now, before we can copy that all over the place, we need some dollars. Dollars will fix things in place. So we want to always refer to column C, the start date. So I'll put a dollar before that. We want always to refer to column D, the finish date, and we want always to refer to row 2, which is this row up here with all of the dates. So let's copy that around. And there we can see our Gantt chart. So now all we need is a formula and say that if the value is equal to 1, then we want a bar. And we want the bar to be yellow foreground, yellow background. So there is our Gantt chart. Now I'm just going to make it a bit more complicated. I'm now going to make this not every day, but every other day. So, and quite often Gantt charts will be every week, for instance. There we go. So this is a way of compressing down what you are seeing. And as I say, it could be every week, or it could be every half week. So the bigger the project, the smaller your time scale can be, and so the smaller the bars will be. But it's entirely down to you. You can have one that's every day and then really squeeze it down. So you would narrow the columns, you would have dates rotated 90 degrees, that sort of thing. Or you could have it every week, or you could have it lots of other ways. So I'm just going to put it so it's every 5 days, for instance. Now you can see it still works, except it won't if I change that to the 8th and 9th, because that's now right in the middle. So if you got something like this, then you have to actually change this slightly. It's now, if it's too early, that's still fairly acceptable, but here we want a 1 in here because it's between the 8th and the 11th. So instead of saying it's too early if column C is equal to now, what we need to do is say, is column C equal to the end of this time period? And when does this time period end? Time period ends at the start of the next time period. So we change this to saying, is the start date greater than or equal to the next start date? So now if you copy that around, you can now see again it works. We have our bar at some way between the 8th and the 11th, so it'll happen on the 6th or the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th at some point. And you can see we've now got it to work, and this is the finalized formula. So it is a small complication, but it allows us to say, okay, it's not just going to be one particular day, it could be any time period. So here you can see it works for all of these time periods. So it's a bit of a complication. It's this last bit which is the complication. So instead of saying, is the start date greater than the current date, we need to say, is the start date equal to or equals to, there's the big bit, equals to or is greater than the next start date. And if at the end all that explanation doesn't make much sense, then just copy this formula. You can see where it goes. Here are the rows 2 to 6 and columns B to S, and in cell E3 you have that formula. And that is how you create a Gantt chart in Excel. If this video has been of interest to you, then why not subscribe to this YouTube channel? Or have a look at my courses on sqlintro.com. Thank you very much.